Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of El Local Podcast 831. I am your host, Eddie Gonzalez, and today I have George Rocha, high-end Comida, coming to you here on the podcast. What's up, George, man?
Hey, how's it going, Eddie?
It's going, man. Thanks for coming on. Um, Excited you're here. You are a chef, a food truck owner, business owner, and we're going to kind of talk about how you came up with your business and just kind of where you're at and where you're going. So, first of all, like I kind of ask everyone, kind of like their background. Born and raised in Watsonville.
Yeah, of course. Born and raised.
So, kind of give me a little bit of your background, growing up here in town, like your family, like where it all kind of just started for you.
Yeah. Well, pretty much it all started right next to the Spa Fitness.
Uh-huh.
You know, I think it's now a different gym called Total Fitness.
Yeah.
So across there is some mobile homes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it all started for me. Going to Freedom School, riding the bikes down there with the friends and everything. And then after that came middle school, which was Rolling Hills.
Mm-hmm.
So from living in that mobile home, we then ended up getting like a house a couple blocks down.
Yeah.
So then, switched from one spot to another, and then we were just like a block or so away from Rolling Hills. So then I went to that middle school. Once I graduated, I ended up going to Watsonville High. And that's where I think a lot of stuff, ended up just going the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
But, through it all, I've found my way to the correct road that I had to take.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of common, right? We all make mistakes. We all kind of sometimes veer off the road a little bit. But we learn from our mistakes or, whatever happens to us. And, we make those right choices, kind of get, back on track, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you're able to, let's say you make a lot of mistakes, but you learn something from it and you're able to grow and develop yourself, then, it's not so much of a wasted time if you actually learn something and you could apply it and become a better person from those, experiences. That's where it really counts when you're going about a different path in life. It's just to take all of the losses and apply them so that you're able to bounce back stronger.
Yeah, no, and I 100% believe that. And I think that a lot of people would agree with that, right? So, growing up in Watsonville, you went from Freedom, Rolling Hills, Watsonville High School. What were kind of like your favorite things to do growing up? You said riding bikes. But what was your favorite kind of things to do growing up as a kid?
Well, I've always been heavy all of my life. So when I was younger, sports, running, all that type of stuff was just like a no-go for me.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did enjoy was when I was much younger, and it was like rainy days. So when it was rainy days, we'd gather up with my brothers and sisters around the Nintendo, hang out, and just like level up and, all that good stuff. So that to me was a really good time, just to be able to hang out, not have to worry about time or place or anything. And I think that's something as a child that right now I wish I had, was just to not have to worry about time, a date, a place, and just be carefree. Those are the kinds of things as a child that you don't think about. And then once you're having to be responsible and all of that, that's when, you wish you could just unwind and not have to worry about so many responsibilities as the day-to-day life.
Yeah, I know. And I think about that, and I had that conversation with one of my previous guests. You're worry-free as a kid, and I still remember like just like the most thing that us as adults worry about. Yeah, we didn't care about that as a kid. And I think, what do you think about like technology being kind of like part of that? Because I feel like back then we had no technology other than like you know, video games, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
pretty much.
but like, if that in itself uh, would probably make things worse back then, or so. Like, what do you think?
I think it would definitely have made things much worse because
Yeah.
you don't have the interaction that you did back in the day. You know,
Mm-hmm.
nowadays you see everybody in a gathering and everybody is glued on their phones.
Yeah.
You know, you can't have really let's say a intimate family moment of
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a good or bad time without somebody already knowing about it. You know,
Yeah.
so I try not to post so much about my personal life. It's just because I want to keep that part separate, you
Yeah.
know? So, you know, I try to keep as much as that private. So when it comes to, you know, something really good happening or bad, you know, I try not to post about it just
Mm-hmm.
because there's also a lot of people that are just going to know all of this about my life and everything, you know, and I don't
Yeah.
want everybody to know all of the details, you know, whether it's good or it's bad. You know, you also have to have some type of privacy for
Yeah.
your own life at times, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But don't get me wrong, there's some people that love the spotlight, that love to share, and that's fine too. But
Mm.
just for myself,
Yeah.
I like to be a little bit more reserved, just because back in the day as a kid, we didn't grow up with all these fancy technology
Yeah.
things, you know. Like when I was a freshman in high school, like in I think 02, 03, you know, cell phones just started coming out and being
Mm-hmm.
a thing. And then I think when I was maybe a sophomore or a junior, like the first camera for taking pictures on the cell phone
Yeah.
came out, you know? So then little by little, everything just started evolving more to the point that, you know, you can't go a few seconds or minutes without being stuck on your phone, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it's pretty rare to not see anybody so engaged in their phone nowadays,
Yeah.
you know. So I do think that, you know, older generations that didn't have this technology are better at interacting
Yeah.
because they had all of those interactions with people, and you know, you weren't having to look off to the side because
Mm-hmm.
you got a message or whatnot. So you know, I've seen all of that, and it's just good and bad, you
Yeah.
know. It's good and bad like anything, you know. So if you overdo something, like anything, you overdo something, then you know it could become bad, and then
Yeah.
all of that. So everything has to be a little bit of balance for
Yeah.
for everything, you
No,
know,
I
regardless.
agree. One of the my favorite quotes is live in the moment, you know? And I think that I try, and whatever I do, when I first had a phone, like I would snap, you know, I would be that person, you know. But then as I got kind of a little bit older, and you know, the same thing, like that interaction, like couldn't really connect with people because we're always on their phone, and so one of the phrases that came up during that time was like live in the moment. Like, you know, I thought about that. So like when I go out and I do things or I experience something, I try to breathe it in first. You know, like if I go to a concert, I mean, I try to enjoy the music. I try to enjoy the vibe, the experience, and I try not to be on my phone because you know you go in and like everyone's on their phone recording all that. You know,
Yeah.
even like a sporting event. You know, I
Hmm.
try to live in the moment as much as possible, and you know, I'll snapshot like something here and there. But I agree, like that connection with what's happening in that moment is very very important. Um, so after high school, uh, graduated, you know, you're saying that you're just kind of you know tugging with going,
Yeah.
you know, certain some ways, you know. Uh, are you able to touch on that? Are you able to
Oh yeah, of
share?
course. Yeah. So you know, also as a kid, I was also very hyperactive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so my ability to stay still is just not that great.
Yeah.
You know, so when I was in first grade, that's where everything just went downhill in the bad way. I had this first grade teacher, and he was very verbally abusive because of my inability to stay still.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was done with assignments, I was just expected to stay there still, you know, and it was difficult for me
Yeah.
just to stay that way. So this teacher would kick me out of class or make me face the wall the whole entire rest of the day,
Yeah.
or write notes to my parents about how bad I was and all of those things, you know. So one day I actually did tell my dad and my mom, like, hey, you know what, like this teacher is being very verbally abusive, and I feel uncomfortable. And my parents being old school, traditional Mexicans back in their day, I think professors and teachers would like, you're misbehaving, you got hit.
Oh yeah.
So then they were like, you know what? If he's saying you're misbehaving and you being bad, then he could hit you, and that's totally fine with us.
Mm-hmm.
So that moment was where I think everything changed
Mm-hmm.
for me. I was like, okay, well, you look at your parents as a kid like superheroes, like they
Mm-hmm.
could fix any problem that might pop up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when they just said, oh, well, let him do what he got to do, I was like, okay, well, they're going to give me hell. I'm going to do the same right back. So you go with that type of mentality from first grade throughout your whole school career.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to give you anything positive,
Yeah.
So then that's where I kind of lost my way.
Mm-hmm.
But through it all, I somehow managed to graduate from high school,
Yeah.
But after I graduated, I was just kind of like, well, I pictured myself living a certain way or, having a certain lifestyle. And then it was just like I was thrown out to the wolves. I was like without a plan, without anything. So then I just started running the streets, being out there, doing
Mm-hmm.
all that, And I never really had a excuse not to be out there
Mm-hmm.
and be doing all these things. Even if I was sick, I was still going out there. I never
Yeah.
had a reason why not to. So after getting in trouble and all that type of stuff, last time I got in trouble, I was about 21.
Mm-hmm.
So, everything was going good until I got in trouble. And then after that, I was actually like a crossroad moment. I was
Yeah.
like, am I going to get out of this situation and keep on doing what I'm doing and then get in trouble again and start, like a cycle,
Yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? So then I got tired of having to pay court fees, lawyer
Mm-hmm.
fees, have everything taken from me, start from zero. So then I thought to myself that moment that I was there, I was like, well, what about if I take that same street mentality, no excuses, no days off, and just go for it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how far can I get? I have a support system, a family.
Mm-hmm.
So what's my excuse not to do it?
Yeah.
So then I was like thinking, and that's where I was like, you know what? Let's just do this the right way and let's see how far we could get.
Mm-hmm.
And cooking was just something that I always liked as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I never seen it as a job, a career, as anything that would ever support my lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So then, as I was just thinking, what am I gonna do or whatever, I was watching the Food Network channel
Yeah.
actually. And then I'd seen that, there was these small mom and pop places that these people had made into restaurants and all that stuff. So the more I was watching, I was like, wait a minute, I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
I should do that. And that's where just the light came into my head. And I was like, gotta get into the cooking thing.
So how old were you when that? Like 21, you said?
Like 22. After I got out of all my problems and
Uh-huh.
everything, I was like 22 when I was already like, what should I do? And,
Mm-hmm.
I was just watching Food Network. And that's when I was like, oh, I always like cooking. I see that there's these small mom and pops places that
Mm-hmm.
these guys built up and they're doing well. They're doing what they like. I should do the same thing.
Uh-huh.
And my dad actually saw this ad for CET, which is like a training school.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that I wanted to go to was for culinary school, which is all the way in San Jose over there.
Yeah.
So the cool thing was that since I was working with my uncles and they were like farmer owners, I qualified for I think it was some type of grant that they gave me, like a farm worker grant.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had all that training and school covered with supplies and whatnot.
Oh, wow.
So that was really cool that I was able to qualify for that.
Mm-hmm.
So then I graduated like within I think 8 months, and I was ready to go on the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where I started my first job at a place called the Bayview Hotel up in Aptos.
Okay.
So that was my very, very first job. It was an Italian place, and it was not what I was expecting it to be, getting
Mm-hmm.
yelled at, having to be fast paced, having to learn so many things that are expected of you. And I was just fresh out of, culinary school. And then from there, I started working different jobs at different places. I ended up becoming a sushi chef as well at this place called Imura's. And then as I was working for restaurants, I found out that I hated working for restaurants because of the way they don't have any consideration for the workers, like as in let's say holidays like Memorial Day, Labor Day, you're expected to go in. Also when it's like, let's say New Year's.
Yeah.
Or New Year's Eve, you're expected to go the next day after having a heavy day of hanging out, It's difficult doing all those things and whatnot. And I think what really got to me the most about working in restaurants was you spend a whole entire day there, and your shift might start from 10 in the morning. They give you a break at about 1 or 2 p.m. They give you like a 3-hour break, and you're coming back like at 5. And then from 5, you do your closing. So you're there like about 12 hours, 11 hours, but you're only clocked in officially like for about like 8 or 9 hours at the most, And what I really, really hated was when it was like 5 minutes before closing, or even it was already closing at 9, and people would still walk in, and then the bosses, they'd be like, oh yeah, come right in, sit right down, and then customers would walk in and they'd just be all chill, like if we were not trying to get home,
Yeah.
But ever since the first job, I was like, how am I gonna actually do it to not have to work for anybody else and have my own thing going on, because in the back of my head, as I was working these jobs, I would just constantly be thinking, how am I gonna do it? What am I gonna do to get to be my own boss and to do my own thing and not have to, deal with certain things I don't like how am I going to do it? The answer for that was COVID-19.
COVID-19.
Yeah, COVID-19 was the answer because after I was a sushi chef, I worked for this place called West Marine, which is in Westridge.
Okay.
And after COVID happened, they actually sold the building to the county of Santa Cruz. And when there was a nationwide shutdown, I think it was in about like March of 2020.
Like March,
it was like a 2-3 week shutdown for the whole nation, So a week before going in, we're all in a telephone conference. And after about 40-45 minutes, sums it up with, everybody in this telephone conference, you are all laid off.
Dang.
Yeah. So I was working a cool job, a cool place, and I was thinking, oh, you know what? This is going to be
I might have found my spot.
Yeah. I was feeling very comfortable, and then that happened, and I was just like shocked, like, whoa, like everything was going great. Like, what do I do now? So then I had to also find another job.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about working at this place, at this facility, was that it was a set schedule, like Monday through Friday, like 6 to 2 p.m.
Like that was it.
Yeah,
that was perfect.
There was no like, oh, you're doing dinner shift, or you're doing a 30 double, which means that you're there all day, or you're working the weekends. No, we had paid time off, we had holidays paid, and we were able to take advantage of all of that. And that's where I really enjoyed having benefits and having a set schedule and not having to be working odd times, hours, days, and whatever. So I was feeling great.
Like you're set.
Yeah. So then COVID happened, we all got laid off, and it's kind of hard for me to find jobs because of my past history, and I have felonies. So because of that, like as soon as we hit the background check, it's like an automatic no.
Yeah.
Interviews go great, qualifications are met, but as soon as we get to the background, it's like, that's it, it's done. And no matter how much work you've put in to change your life, what you've been through and how you've changed, even if you could show them in black and white in paper, if you could show them diplomas, documents, they don't ever see that. They don't even regard that as anything. They're just like, oh, well, something happened. That's it.
Yeah, they don't
It,
want to take that risk.
yeah. And,
Yeah.
even if it's been 5, 10 years, 15, whatever, they don't look at the hard work you've done to come out from where
You
you
came
were at
from.
once,
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that I don't like about, certain things is that, if you're given a second chance and you actually take advantage of it, when you go out to the workforce and stuff like that, they really don't see any of the hard work. Even if you try to plead your case or whatever, they won't listen,
Yeah.
And
There's something about like the United States rehabilitation of people with felonies that like it just you know like I said like you've put in you've done whatever you did, you did your time or whatever it was, and you're trying to better yourself, and then no one sees that as a good thing. They just automatically peg you as you're bad for business, you're
yeah,
labeled, you're like almost marked, you're stamped,
yeah, exactly,
and
yeah.
no one takes uh, to even give a chance, and it's just something about the system here in the United States that's just um, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and what I'm happy to share with everyone is like this testament that you have of even though you face those hardships, right? Your story is that you continue to persevere and move forward and work hard to get to where you're at.
Yeah, and
Right.
then that's the thing though, when you do have great employment opportunities or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get rejected because of something, then how do you keep yourself positive? How do you keep yourself from going back to what to do,
Yeah.
So those were the things I had to do, and be like my own support system,
Mm-hmm.
cheer myself on, because at times that's the best thing to do, is for you to just have your own back,
Yeah.
and don't expect anybody else to tell you something nice for you to be able to get yourself together and move forward and think
Mm-hmm.
of the next step of what to do to make sure that you get to where you want to get.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I had to face all throughout this
Mm-hmm.
journey,
Yeah.
was not to let a bad experience derailed me and set me back, because it's taken me since like over 15 years just to get to where I'm at. Hard work,
Mm-hmm.
no excuses, like no days off, and just keep taking the bad with the good and making it roll, and not to get sidetracked,
Yeah.
because that could be just very heartbreaking, and just it's not so motivating when you get constantly rejected,
Mm-hmm.
so that's where you just have to hold yourself strong and be like, you know what, maybe this opportunity didn't happen, maybe it didn't happen for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
but let's just keep ourselves together. We have our support system here in case you're feeling a little blue.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have that, so you could kind of get a little bit of advice and shake it off and
Yeah.
keep on going, so that's the thing, that even when things get tough, don't break, don't fold, just figure a way out, talk to
Yeah.
somebody, and then see what your next step is going to be,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. At any point where you just like, and how did you overcome that moment? And like I said, you got to be your own support system. But at any moment where you just like, you know what, screw it, I'm done. Like, you kind of get back to the like, you know what, go back to the old ways, because nothing's working for you, and you're being shut down and everything. Do you ever, at some point where you just like, I'm done?
Yeah, there was a lot of those moments, but also, uh, believing in Jesus Christ, who has pretty much helped me be where I'm at today,
Mm-hmm.
having a higher power, whoever that might be, that's fine. But as long as you have somebody that you believe that could help you in the hardships, that's also going to go a long way. And also you having a plan of, you know, knowing what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and not losing sight of it. That's very important, just to visualize, and not lose track, because once you do, it's very easy just to slip.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do slip, there's no chance you're gonna get yourself back out.
Yeah.
You're just a couple seconds away, one bad choice away from, maybe ruining the rest of your life. So those are kind of things that you have to sit back, let them simmer, and not do anything quick or just at the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
Because that's when you're gonna run into trouble.
Yeah, like kind of like react on emotion, right? And I think that's a lot of things that a lot of people do, and it's a skill that you got to learn, right, with time and just experiences. But like, not reacting right away at the moment, because at the heat of the moment, like you said, like things could change like that. You can make a wrong choice and
exactly,
end up back to where you used to be.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing was that through it all, it was just for me like it's very easy to go back, but the thing is that when you switch one life for another life, it's a whole different story. It's a whole new beginning, and it's a whole new road. Like I thought I was gonna live and die this life that I was living. But then, I was fortunate enough to be able to find my way out. And when I did, that's when I was like, you know what? I have all the tools here to make it happen. So why wouldn't I make it happen? If my parents came here to give us a better life and give us the life they did not have, like, what's my excuse for not being able to make something out of it, So that was something that I was seeing. And then at the same time, too, I had friends that were coming back from college, graduating with their degrees and everything. And just because I had a stack of cash, like, I didn't felt that accomplishment. I didn't felt that sense of, like, I've done something with myself good,
Yeah.
Because I knew what I was doing wasn't anything good, anything for me to be proud of, or anything that I could say I've accomplished, So I always felt that, like, sense of, like, man, like, I wish I could do something or be someone, or, something more than what I was doing, So, yeah, the time that everything did happen, that's where, what I did notice was that to make it and do things the right way is very difficult. And that's why I think a lot of people give up, is because it's much easier to go back to what you were doing than to actually have to endure rejections, things going wrong, things falling apart, and holding yourself together, and at the same time still being motivated and driven to keep going and getting that goal of where you want to get. So those are all things that you face, and it's very difficult. And that's why a lot of people, after they feel the pressure of how difficult it is, they go back to do what they're doing. And I myself felt like I wanted to just like be like, you know what, I'm done. But I kept thinking, you never had any sick days, you never had any excuses. There's no excuse now. You gotta keep on going. And then once all of that happened at the West Marine, and I was looking for another job, and I probably got like 4 or 5 offers. I was offered jobs by the county, also jobs with retirement homes, senior living, school districts, and they all said no because of the background. Interviews, everything went well, but background, everything disqualified me. So that's where I was like, you know what? Before I find a job, let me just do a food sale. Let's see what happens, And I started off like, just at a garage selling food, because I knew how to. After like 10 years of food experience, I kind of had a way, or I had an idea of how things might work. So then I started off with one sale, posted it on Instagram, I'll have this today. And I actually had people coming in and were like, oh, okay, like, sign me up.
What was the first meal?
Sushi. And I hate making sushi.
Really?
Yeah, it's very tedious because you have to be very precise, and everything has to be perfect, And then when you have a high volume of sushi, you're just rolling so much, and then the rice gets everywhere, your hands get sticky, and it's just messy. It's not clean or anything. So the first meal was sushi, and everybody was just like, oh yeah, I gotta have it, let me sign up. And then from that sale, it just snowballed little by little, you know. So then I was having weekly sales, Saturdays and Fridays, you know, changing up the menu from whether it was taco sushi or maybe a burger or a tri-tip sandwich, stuff like that. So then I started rolling the ball a little bit, and I started seeing like, oh, this is the step that I had to take to get to being like my own person,
Your
to
own
being
boss.
my own boss.
Yeah.
And it was because of what happened with COVID and me getting laid off, looking for another job. So while that all of that was happening, like I was making it happen on the side, you know.
So would you say, you know, COVID happening was a blessing in disguise?
Yeah, yes, it was, just because, you know, I was able to get my career, but it was also such like a horrible thing that happened.
Yeah.
You know, but it was because it sped everything up for me, because I had no choice. It was like my back was against the wall, so I had to do something because I have bills to pay and all that. So they weren't gonna hold the credit card bill, my rent, and be like, okay, COVID's happening. You know, don't worry about paying for the next year. You know,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that does not happen. So that's when I had to get this going. So then after that, I was having my sales. Then I also wanted to get out into the community, and that's where I found out, you know, how to get my permits in order and whatnot, you know. So then I went to the environmental health in Santa Cruz, up in the third floor, and then from there, you know, I processed my paperwork. I filed the business name and all of that, you know. So then after that, I was able to set up my tent, my little canopy, because that's how I started, with the little canopy. You know, I didn't start with no food truck, so I started off with the little canopy, and then from that little canopy, you know, I was doing sales like, you know, Fridays, Saturdays, or going up to breweries and little by little putting cash off to the side, saving up, you know.
And people were just like noticing you, you know, because you would post up a lot on here at the Vets Hall.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you were there.
yeah, that
and,
was the home base when it all started.
And I remember I tried your food a couple of times because, like, you know, I'd go over to my cousin's house. Like, oh yeah, like, what is this? Like, oh yeah, it's a high end comida. Like some guy that does catering and does food at his house. I'm like, all right, and I tried it. It was good. I'm like, okay, cool. But then you started popping up more and more on social media, you know, and I saw more people, like, kind of like friends that I follow and all that, you know, posting your food, you know. So as you're rolling, you're going to these breweries, you're setting money aside, and you're saving. Like, what are you feeling through all this time? You know, it's like you go from not having a plan, sink or swim moment, and now like you're rolling.
That's a moment where I felt like the hard work, the rejections, just hanging in the pocket. You know, that's when I started to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So it took me, like, when I started, you know, when I was 21 up to now, over like 15 years, you know, sometimes you don't even see the light at all.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to figure out a way to keep yourself motivated for still going. But when you see the smallest speck of light, that should be more than enough motivation for you to be like, I'm seeing something.
Yeah.
Or even if you do something and you get a good result, that should be motivation for you to be like, I did something right. I got it. And what feels good is that everything I've done to this point, like, nobody could take it away from me, because I've done it the right way, the legit way, you know. And it's taken a lot of time, a lot of effort to be able to do it this way. And it's difficult, but, you know, if you're consistent and you keep on going, and if you have your own back, then you won't let yourself fail.
Yeah.
You know, you'll keep on pushing yourself to make yourself successful as much as you can, you know.
Yeah.
So then from being at the VFW, there was another vendor that was there as well, which is now my business partner. And we actually just combined the business and stuff. So then he was like, you know what, we should get a food truck. So then I was like, all right,
Yeah.
let's go at it, and we'll figure it out from there, how to get everything to be up to what it needs to be so we could operate. So
Mm-hmm.
we ended up getting a food truck, and it took almost like a good 10 months to get it.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like in like survival mode, just like having to spend like a lot of money to get this project going. So you reach in, you get your savings out, and then pretty much like from when your build is going
Yeah.
to then when you receive it, you just gotta find ways to stay busy,
Mm-hmm.
make sure you're able to make ends meet and all that good stuff.
Staying afloat. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have good days and you have bad days, and that's just how it is. You can't just have all good days, and
Yeah.
that's one thing I've learned. But as long as you just keep on going, that's what's gonna help you like be more successful. It's
Mm-hmm.
just to keep on going even if you've had a bad
Yeah.
day.
Your so the name of your business is High End Comida,
Yeah.
right? Uh, take me through the name. Why did you call it that? What was the story behind naming it?
Okay. So first name was actually high end cuisine.
Uh huh.
That was the first original name I came up with, high end cuisine. And I didn't like that. Like it just didn't have a Mexican feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
And since I'm Mexican, I wanted it to have some type of like Mexican,
Yeah.
something that sounds like it.
Yeah.
So then I was thinking and thinking, and then I was like, wait, I think I'm gonna switch out the cuisine to comida instead. So then that way people know like, oh, maybe there's a Mexican that runs it.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted. And then also I support the cannabis community a
Mm-hmm.
lot. So I also do events with a lot of cannabis vendors, farmers, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was another reasoning for the name too. So I had to kind of fit in like the cannabis community with the food, because for me, I like both of them being paired up together.
Yeah.
It's sort of like you pair up whiskey and like country music. They
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
go. And food and the cannabis community, they work very well together.
Yeah.
So then coming up with the name, I was like, yeah, I had to put the cannabis with also food, and then just have like a Mexican background to it as well. So that's where all that name came in together to make
Mm-hmm.
it high end comida, and it all just flowed out perfectly
Yeah.
when I changed the cuisine to comida. It just was like perfect
Yeah.
on the way that happened. So then that's how the name came about
Yeah, no,
together.
and it has a good ring to it, and as you're talking about cuisine, it there's something about that word that just like it doesn't fit the culture here, like it's just like but like high like comida like that definitely has a ring to it. Um and so you partner up with your business partner, you guys get a truck. What's that moment like when you first pick it up or it's delivered to you or you have it there in front of you?
Well, it's a surreal moment because you see all your hard work paying off. But then after that, you're like, well, where am I going to run it? What
Mm-hmm.
place am I going to go? What permits am I going to file? Like the fire department, they have to. So then there's a lot of other things that go behind it. So it wasn't just like, oh, we have food truck now and all our problems are solved. No, there's
Mm-hmm.
still a lot more that goes behind that, because
Mm-hmm.
you have to pay monthly bills on just being able to operate all that.
Well, what are those bills or what are those things that you had to pay for
So
that's extra that came with it?
so you have to pay your like annual fees with the health environment.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to pay your fees with the city, get your business license with them.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to also have your commissary fee, which is your kitchen where you're able to store your food,
Mm-hmm.
cook, do all that. And then you have your insurance for your food truck as well that you have to
Yeah.
do. And then, you have your food costs for whatever products you're going
Yeah.
to get and all that. So you have those right there already weighing down on you every single month, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's good, whether it's bad or not. You have those heavy bills already there waiting for you right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
So then, sometimes you might go to an event, and that event might charge you, I don't know, let's say $1,000, $2,000 just to
To
join
be
the,
there, yeah.
yeah. So sometimes it could be such a bad event that you don't even break even,
Yeah.
or sometimes you break even.
Hmm.
Sometimes you're lucky enough and you make more, you know. So anytime you set up to go anywhere, it's like a gamble you're taking,
Yeah.
but you just never know. So it's one of those that, you just gotta gamble,
Hmm.
risk, reward, and you just weigh both of them out. And for me, whether it's a good turnout or a bad turnout, the exposure you get to being in the community,
Yeah.
being out there, being seen, have people know who you are, meeting the person behind, the business, and being able to talk to
Hmm.
somebody, So even if it's not so much of a great day, I'll be able to meet people
Yeah.
for them to get to know me.
Yeah.
So for a different time, they might be like, "Oh, hey, here's High Comida. We saw him last time, and he's here today. Let's stop on by and say hello." Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What do they say? There's no such thing as bad publicity. In that sense that like even if you go to an event and you don't make enough or you don't break even, I mean, like you said, the exposure of people seeing who you are later on down the road, it's like, oh, I remember them, or hey, I know catering, uh, you know, business,
exactly.
um, so kind of talk me through, what it is you serve. Uh, do you still at the beginning when you go, you're doing the weekly and you're selling it on the weekends and everything, and you're switching up the menu here and there. Uh, how did you decide on the menu and of your truck? And do you switch it up? Do you just kind of keep it the same?
So on the menu, we do have like a set menu with items like, for example, we'll have our hibachi, our Mexican food, like the loaded fries and sandwiches and smash burgers, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all like the set. But then I have another area on my menu where it could be the special of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So then the special of the day leaves me creativity to have something much different
Yeah.
than my set items. So the set items are there, but the special of the day is what could change
Yeah.
from, anything from Cajun food to a pasta to sushi, stuff like that. So then the special gives me that freedom to do something different if I want to change it up or throw a curveball in there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the cool thing about it, is that it's not just set on one certain item and you're known for one thing.
Yeah.
Because when I started at High End Comida, it was to be known for a variety of
Mm-hmm.
food, not just one. Whatever I make, it would be something
Yeah.
that would be great. So that's why I would like, it's better to be known for variety than for just one single item, because later down the road you're doing something different, then you're considered the chicken person or the
Yeah.
shrimp person, or people might ask, "Oh, well, I've never had this item from them because I'm always having their chicken sandwich."
Yeah.
So then, sometimes they might be wondering, how is this person going to make this work if they just specialize in breakfast or
Yeah.
whatever. So that's why I try to do a variety, so that when I do bring something different, they know that I've always been doing that since the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um, what's your favorite thing to cook? What's like your specialty? Like that's it. Like every time you make it, it's like 100% it.
I think for sure the Hawaiian plates we've been making, the hibachi and the smash burgers, are always on point.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, I think, our best sellers. And to get a very good quality smash around here, I don't think there's many places that are able to give you that type of satisfaction when you take a bite.
Mm-hmm.
So everything we do, we make sure everything is like fresh to order when we
Mm-hmm.
do it, so that way you take that first bite, it's like fresh off the grill and everything, so you get the best experience you possibly can get, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So then, as long as everything is done, I think with a lot of care and love, like you're able to pretty much put all that care into your dish that you do,
Yeah.
and it reflects on it, you know, because a angry person could make you something and it could just be like very foul
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of the energy going into it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go about to make our stuff, it's like, you know, the love,
Mm-hmm.
the care, it's all there, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And you know, occasionally we might mess up an order or whatnot, but you know, if we ever do that, then you know, the thing is like we'll make sure we make it right.
Yeah.
Either give you the money back, give you another free meal, whatever it is to, you know, make sure you're happy on your end too, you know, because everybody still makes mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
but it's on the way you correct them, the way
Yeah.
you go about it, that makes it better
Mm-hmm.
for somebody, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And since debuting, right, your truck, and you mentioned like all the fees and all that you have to pay and all that. What's been one of the, like, the challenging parts, aside from like, maybe going to an event and not knowing if you're gonna break even or not, and then just paying all those bills? What's been one of the, like, the challenges that you have faced so far, and how do you correct and overcome those?
The I think the yeah, the I think the biggest challenges is just to make sure you have enough to cover what the expenses are, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because then if you don't, you could start digging into credit cards real quick,
Yeah.
you know. So even if it means like having to work 7 days a week or maybe 2 weeks in a row, you just got to make it happen. You know, you just got to make sure that you're able to survive for the next month. So if it means that you have no time off, then you have no time off, because right now in this phase, it's more of a developmental phase.
Mm-hmm.
And right now I'm working for the business.
Yeah.
The business doesn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm lucky enough, I hope to one day have the business work for me.
Yeah.
So before I get to that point, you got to do all the legwork, the heavy lifting, you know, all of the early nights, the
Mm-hmm.
late nights.
Yeah.
You got to make sure you're there to do it day in, day in, you know? So the big goal for me is, once I'm lucky enough to have the business work for me, that's where I'm going to be like, that's why I did everything that I did.
Yeah.
That's why I switched my life, is to have what I have now and be able to enjoy myself this way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm working towards right now, is for that. But a step in the correct direction, oh yeah, with the food trailer that I just end up acquiring, it's going to help me get there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still a lot more heavy lifting to do.
Yeah.
There's still a long ways to go before I can say I could finally let the business take care of me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
still a long way for that.
Yeah. I've heard that, one of the hardest things businesses to get into is food. You know, um, for those reasons, right? That it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, putting in. Um, but it seems like you love what you do, right? You love to do cook, and just that connecting with the community. Um, how do you how do you kind of reset? Because you're working, like, sometimes says 7 days a week. You're putting in that work, and I'm sure it could get overwhelming, right?
Oh
so,
yeah.
So how do you reset? How do you kind of ground yourself back to, like, all right, this is just a moment that I'm going through. I need a reset.
For me, the best way to reset is to do a whole lot of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want to worry about the time. I don't want to worry about the date. I don't want to worry about a place. So I just want to, let's say in the morning, wake up at whatever time I'm going to wake up, and not have to be rushed to be anywhere at any place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not having to make myself any dinner at all. Be like, you know what? I'm going to treat myself to sushi today,
Yeah.
you know, or I'm going to go over here to this bar and grill, have myself an appetizer, dinner, a few drinks, and then maybe after I'm gonna watch some Netflix, you
Mm-hmm.
know, stuff like that. For me, I don't have to get so fancy, so complicated to unwind. It's the simplest things for me
Mm-hmm.
that make me restart myself, get regrounded, or even also just doing an overview of the weeks leading to that day where I could take my moment off and just
Yeah.
being like, oh man, like I actually worked over 100 hours this week. Like, oh, that's crazy, like um, we found a way how to stick through it. And now we're able to take this moment just to be worry free, not have any thoughts
Mm-hmm.
in your head, and just like enjoy the day for what it is, you know? So for me, that's the best way just to have a restart is to not be on my cell phone, not be calling anybody, just like isolating pretty much just to gather my thoughts
Yeah.
together and just like be able to absorb everything that has happened.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's the
Just kind
best
of,
way.
yeah. That's a good way to reset. Doing absolutely nothing. And sometimes, we do need those
Yeah.
absolutely nothing moments or days. And I've had a few here and there. Ain't nothing wrong with that. So I gotta ask you, like, as a chef, you know, you're a foodie. You got to be a foodie. If you're a chef, you're a foodie,
Oh yeah.
right? You're, that term,
Definitely.
right?
Yeah.
So how do you, what foods do you like? What is like your taste buds like? What are you into as far as food? What do you look for in food?
You know what? I love, I think, almost everything I do love. Like, like pizza, pasta, burgers, you know, Asian food, Italian food.
Mm-hmm.
I think I pretty much like everything. And for me, like ever since I was a kid, I've always loved food.
Yeah,
I've never been on the thin side ever,
yeah.
So I've always,
Same,
yeah,
same.
I've always loved that as a kid,
Yeah.
Um, and I would say that it was crazy because as a kid, I only ate my burger just like with ketchup.
Mm-hmm.
And then as time went on, then, one day I was with one of my cousins hanging out. We went to the movie theater just down to the Green Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were going to Jack in the Box. And it's when they had like those jumbo jack deals, buy one, get one free or
Yeah.
whatever. So then as he's going to get the 2-for-1 deal, I'm like, hey, order mine just with ketchup only. And he's like, bro, I'm not about to ask for a little kid's meal. We like fully grown, and gave me all this. He's like, I'm going to get you the jumbo jack how it comes. If you eat it, you do. If you don't, then that's fine. But
Yeah.
that's how I'm going to get it. And I'm
Yeah.
not going to order it for you plain. So then I was like, and then I got the burger, and then boom, I took one bite, and I was just like, whoa, what is this?
That's how burgers supposed to be eaten.
Yeah, so then after that, like my whole life changed actually. I started actually eating different types of toppings that I would never consider,
Mm-hmm.
cilantro, onion, tomato, lettuce, salsa, cheese.
Yeah.
I didn't used to eat any of that. I was very, very plain.
Yeah.
So that moment, that time at Jack in the Box, it changed my life forever.
Who,
Yeah.
who would have thought a jumbo jack just changed
Yeah.
your life and it completely reprogrammed you into like the whole
Yeah.
food and everything.
Yeah. Exactly.
Uh, how, do you, do you try to find inspiration through other foods? Do you like, try new things and explore, kind of like the culinary experience to kind of help better improve yourself as a chef?
Oh yeah, I definitely anytime I go anywhere or I see any vendor, whatever it might be, I'm always like with my head, I'm always observing, taking notes
Mm-hmm.
and seeing what I could apply to myself. They might have a different type of technique in slicing or plating it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see it, it clicks in my head and I'm like, that right there is gonna work for me.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I could be like, oh well, if this guy were to do this this way, I think they'd have a easier time managing, because when you do this for so long, you don't put so much time into thinking. You just kind of look at it and you're already like knowing all of it, you know, like
Yeah.
as in you're just programmed, like you see it and then like you're just like in this like mode of like you know what's going on because you're doing the same exact
Mm-hmm.
thing, you know. So then you know when people do different things or they come out with some type of different combination that they put together, I look at that too and I'm like, I could do that too, you know, and stuff like that. So then, you know, you start getting more creative or you get
Mm-hmm.
more ideas just because you're observing somebody else do their things their way, you
Yeah.
know. So even though I went to like this culinary school, I still learn things every day.
Mm-hmm.
I see people and then, you know, I look at how they're doing it and sometimes I might learn a thing or two and be like,
Yeah.
that was pretty cool. I didn't know that,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So that's always cool.
Yeah. When you kind of start first experimenting and creating your food, um, is there a lot of mistakes when you're trying to get that recipe right? You know,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's like, dude, you end up messing up and having to throw away a lot of food. Like, you know, what is that like?
Oh, no, yeah. Definitely, like, you know, when you're first in culinary school and everything, you know, about measuring and whatnot, you're like, they say a teaspoon, then you make sure that it's a perfectly even teaspoon. But as time goes on in your head, you kind of already know the measurements
Mm-hmm.
and you could just kind of grab it and throw it in there.
Yeah.
Or you have the feeling for the taste of the spice of what it might be.
Yeah.
Like if it's going to be a strong spice, mild or light, you know that you could go heavier on the lighter tasting spices
Mm-hmm.
than you can in a harsher, more pungent spice,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So then you know like, oh, I think I need less than what the recipe's calling for, because you've worked with these spices that you kind of understand how they work,
Yeah.
you know. So then as you're working with these things, you take notes of the flavors, the aromas, and you get to know that by smelling the aromas after cooking, if it's too much,
Mm-hmm.
too little, or something, the smell of it when it's coming together, it could also be a great indicator of how well you've used your spices and all that type of stuff, you know. So there is a lot of trial and error, but when you first start, you're like measuring everything perfect and
Yeah.
whatnot. But as you get more comfortable, you just start grabbing things and like whipping them
Mm-hmm.
because like you've done it for so long
Mm-hmm.
that more or less you already know like about how much is what
Yeah.
when you're throwing it and it looks like you're just getting crazy like Merlin, you know,
Yeah.
mixing potions and
Everything. Oh
everything.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So all of that takes time for you to be able to master it and be able to toss things around and just like not even measure them and just sprinkle it right in
Yeah.
there, you know. So all of that takes time like anything to
Yeah.
develop, you know.
I mean, when I cook, I mean, I love to cook myself. I'm kind of maybe it's like a Mexican thing where you just eyeball everything.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's just me. Like, oh, you know, because I can't follow recipes. Like, there's something about just kind of like the instructions to cooking, and I try to do recipes where I'm just like, I just can't seem to like get it right. But when I like just eyeball it and I kind of go, I taste as I go. That's when it's like, all right, I think I got something. So that's me as a cook. Um, where do you see high end comida going right now? Like, you're kind of in a good spot, right? You're working hard. Um, it, it's it's tough, right? It's that just a business, but like you're loving what you do. Like I said, where do you see yourself going in the next so many years?
For sure.
And where do you want to go?
For sure, what I want to do is either get another food truck or maybe even have a location,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But before I get to either or, the first plan is for the next 2 years or so, or maybe three, is just to make sure I have a good bank report. So when I ask for my next project loan or whatever, they could see that the business has been up and running, you know, that it's already been a few years,
Yeah.
make it easier. And then from there, depending on the economy, how everything is, I might get a food truck, I might get a location. But, you know, before I get there, I have like these 2 3 years to keep on being more out there in the public,
Mm-hmm.
be doing more events, be consistent, and just be on the grind, you know. So it's good that this first food truck is helping,
Yeah.
but you know, like at times you could just be like, oh well, that's enough for me. I'm comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, the problem is, well, for me, just getting comfortable stops your progression.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want to get comfortable because I still want to develop. I still want to get more. So right now it's cool, it's nice, but you know, I still want more. I
Yeah.
still want to develop more, and having this piece of equipment with me will help me develop myself more because if I get very successful, what a lot of people don't know, what I really really want to do is actually have a animal sanctuary.
Okay.
Yeah. So where I could have a whole bunch of dogs and cats that are gonna get euthanized and just let them roam for, you know, the rest of their lives. Give them
Yeah.
a safe space, you know, any
Yeah.
type of animals and stuff. Because I'm very huge on animals, you know.
Yeah.
So uh, if I'm very successful, I would love to have a animal sanctuary to be able to, you know, keep animals from getting euthanized. Because for me, animals, they're just I think probably the best gift that God has given people is animals, just because of the unconditional love they give you, the
Yeah.
support that you get from them when you come home from a very exhausting, miserable day. They're
Yeah.
there to, you know, comfort you, be there and whatnot. So if everything goes well, I hope I'm able to, you know, establish and make a sanctuary for animals.
We'll talk about that. Where did your love for animals come? Like what and where did that idea come from?
I think you know, my grandpa, when we would go visit him, he would always put National Geographic on,
Uh.
you know. So that's where I started liking animals, just by looking at National Geographic, you know, looking at the rainforest, all that type of stuff. And what made me get more upset is that when it comes to animals, the reason for them suffering is because of people, not because of animals themselves.
Yeah.
It's actually people hurting these animals,
Oh yeah.
you know, and that to me just makes me feel very, very upset that somebody could abuse an animal in a certain way or start dismembering them and not get any punishment for it, you
Mm-hmm.
know, all these cruel acts that happen and it just goes unpunished, and I feel that's not okay because these animals, they don't do anything to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're just doing their own thing, and somebody just comes up, kicks a dog, a cat,
Oh
or
yeah.
you know, kills them for fun or for likes on a video or something. You know, I think that's just horrible,
Yeah.
and I don't think that type of behavior should be condoned or
Yeah.
should go unpunished. You know, something should happen to where it those types of acts should stop.
Yeah.
You know?
I think yeah, like you're right. Like man's best friend is a legit statement because you could have a horrible day, like you said, just a bad day, and you come home and that animal just, you know, wants you, like you're its whole world,
Yeah.
right? Like you're its life, and they just want your attention. Except for cats, I don't know. Cats are kind of like, you know,
You know what? I used to not be a cat person, but now I like cats and dogs.
yeah,
And cats are just so misunderstood. They're very misunderstood. And they're not nothing like a dog. And that's where a lot
yeah,
of people always try to compare a dog with the cat. It's like comparing a banana with the strawberry.
yeah.
They're both fruits, but they're
They're completely
so
different,
different.
completely different.
Exactly. And then cats are just like on their terms, they're gonna either let you pet them, get close to them whenever they feel like it.
Yeah,
As opposed to a dog, they'll just be right next to you, pet all day long. A cat will not do that same type of
Yeah.
stuff. You know,
And
whenever,
it's rare,
yeah,
that they let you do that, because I had two cats myself. I kind of became somewhat of a cat person the last couple of years. Uh, Unfortunately, the first one, passed away, and the other one, well, that's a whole other story. But um, you have any animals yourself?
oh yeah, yeah, I have some cats.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that was the thing that I was a dog person, and then one of my coworkers that I had, he worked at a golf course, and golf course I think are very notorious for having feral cats.
Uh huh.
So then he's like, "Oh, hey, this mama just had a litter," and for some reason I always thought a black cat was just majestic, like cool, like
Mm-hmm.
just like so different. So I was like, if there's a black cat in there, let me have the black cat. He's like, oh yeah, there's a black cat. So then I grabbed my little black cat. Her name is Ninja, and then from there, it was just like I think like a whole different world that
Uh huh.
just like opened, and I was just like, whoa, like cats are not as bad as I thought they were. They're
Mm-hmm.
like pretty cool, or like they do their own thing. They like leave you alone, but then sometimes they want you to pet them for a little bit, so they'll sit down next to you. But then they'll be like, "I'm over it, leave me
Yeah.
alone, bye."
Yeah.
Going out. So that's cool because they have a mixed bag of emotions all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool with them. So right now I have like 3 cats and stuff. And whether it's a good or bad day, when I come home to them, it's always nice just to have them be purring and have them. I want to say they're happy when they see me because I
Yeah.
feed them.
Yeah.
So if I feed them, I think they're happy. But I also like I really love my cats a whole bunch.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that I was opened my eyes to cats, which I never did before,
Mm-hmm.
and now I could say I enjoy the company of dogs and cats, not just one but both.
Yeah.
So it gives me more love to give to both. So that's another reason too why I don't like to see animal shelters euthanize dogs and stuff or whatnot. So
Yeah.
like I'm gonna hopefully be working with some people that do rescuing and stuff to maybe host some type of adoption events
Yeah.
to rescue some animals. And I mean, if I could do that, that would be, I think, amazing. I would love to be able to help out animals in any way that I'm able to.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, it takes a special type of person, right, to kind of like have that love and that wanting to help animals and just keep animals safe, and that's great. I mean, you're a chef. You love food. You love animals. That's a good combination right there. Food and animals. And kind of going back into the food, like I know that there is something that you started back in the fall, I think, right?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, the Food Truck Friday.
Food Truck Fridays, yeah. So, talk to me a little bit about Food Truck Fridays, what it is, when it is, and what led to having that, because that's pretty cool to have something like that here in town, especially because I know the city's kind of they have some type of feeling towards food trucks.
hmm Yeah. So once I got my food truck, I'm an operator at the Elks Lodge, and they have a huge lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we have it. It's at 121 Martinelli Street every Friday, like from 5 to 10. So then I did see that there's other counties, other cities that have food truck events and gatherings, but that's somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
That's at a different county, maybe an hour away. So I was like thinking, why not have something like that here for us? Why do we have to drive so far and go somewhere?
Yeah.
Why not have it here with us? So since I'm an operator there and I got my food truck, I told the owners, well, I'm thinking on doing this food truck event, bring all these food trucks, line them up, and have something for the community to enjoy, something new for them. And after talking with them at first, they were a little bit skeptical of how it would work. And I think in November was the first time I did the first one. So I was like going with the intentions of doing something for the community, something different, something where you don't have to go out of your ways to enjoy good food.
Yeah.
So then, once I got the green light with the owners, that's when I was like, okay, let me see the vendors from this area and bring everybody in. So then that way it's everybody from town coming in.
Yeah.
But then, of course, there's also other people coming in from, like Santa Cruz and stuff like that. And that's pretty cool too. But the first ones were more like, let's get all the
Yeah. The local trucks.
yeah, the local trucks. And, if everything goes well, like, let's reach out down to the other people here, Santa Cruz, Monterey, let them know that, we have something cool where, you don't have to go so far to enjoy something great.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was able to get these guys to come down and check something out. And, everybody ended up just being like, whoa, like, this is something that you find like in San Jose.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go like down to LA or stuff,
Yeah.
San Francisco, whatever. So then the whole point was just to make something.
Accessible for us.
Yeah, exactly. To have it right here in the heart of the community and have something new for people. So like arts and crafts vendors are always welcome to come down if they want to showcase their stuff, whatever it might be. Food vendors are welcome to join, but usually for the food vendors, I only take like food trucks
Yeah.
just because like in the canopy tent setup, there's always more rules and regulations, permits
Yeah.
to be filed because it's a little bit more complicated operating in canopies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like any food truck that's interested, if they reach out to me, I'll let them know like, hey, you could come on down here and run the whole logistics to them. Or if somebody even is thinking about getting into the food business game, all they gotta do is reach out to me and let me know, hey, how do I do it?
Yeah.
Where do I go? How do I get the ball rolling? And those are kind of things that, as a business owner, you don't really have so much of like a guide for
Mm-hmm.
somebody or someone to let you know exactly how to do it step by step.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to go on your own and just kind of ask. And since I went through that whole process, if anybody ever had any questions about how to do it, where to go, I'd be able to help them out, just to
Yeah.
give them a hand, pointers.
Being a resource. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anybody could access my knowledge anytime they'd feel like they want to develop themselves into this industry.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be able to let them know where, why, and how.
Yeah.
You know,
You guys heard it here. If you guys got questions, you guys, got concerns or anything that has to do with, operating and opening your own food truck, you got a resource right here, man. Food Truck Fridays is great. I've gone pretty much almost every Friday this year because when I found out, I'm like, whoa, I'm driving by East Lake and I see all these trucks. I'm like, dude, what's going on? And I go and I think that's a great experience, something to do, on a Friday. And I love it because I've spent a lot of money on food, being there. But it's cool because it's like something new every day, every week, and I'm trying different foods from different trucks that are showing up. So it's every Friday,
Friday.
5 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And who's usually out there? Like, what trucks are usually consistent? You guys are out there.
Yeah, Ace Pizza's out there. Tacos Nuevo Imperio's out there. El Pato Frutas is out there. Chucho's Cocina
Mm-hmm.
is also out there with us. Chubby Tacos as well. They're down here, in the VFW.
Yeah.
We have the Papa Loca come down, El Cafecito. So we have those guys coming in, and then, we also do have other vendors that come in, like whether it's like Ruben's Tacos from Santa Cruz or
Yeah.
like SC Eatery, Espadín or Taquisas Gabriel,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So, we get people coming in and stuff, but, at times people could be booked for events and stuff. So sometimes, we might have some of these vendors not be there because,
Yeah.
they might be booked somewhere or whatnot. But usually the lineup, we might get some new people coming in, or maybe it'll be the same, but it's something different every time. That's for sure.
Yeah. So people get a variety, and not to
Yeah.
say that food is boring, but like trying something new, different,
Mm-hmm.
every single week. So I really encourage everyone to go check it out. I mean, you'll most likely catch me out there, you know, getting my grub on, and uh, yeah, just it's a good time. It's a good time. You got something to do. Take the family out to eat, and sometimes you guys got some music out there.
Oh yeah, yeah. I usually get the DJ from about like 6 to 9 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Usually get the DJ and everything. So yeah, usually every Friday we'll have the music and stuff, and hopefully with summertime, my goal is to also be bringing in car clubs. Across the street there's the Fruition Brewery, and usually
Fruition, yeah.
there every Saturday there's these group of individuals that go there for like I think coffee and just
Coffee
to
and cars.
yeah. So I'm gonna try to get those muscle car guys over here just so they could hang out as well, and then everybody that comes there could check out the nice cars, enjoy themselves, get a
Yeah,
bite to eat, and just have a great time with the family. Pet friendly as well,
yeah,
so bring your cat, dog, your lizard, your parrot.
yeah,
It's all good.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. That's cool that you're doing this, um, and to let everyone know who's the face behind, having these food truck Fridays, and trying to get that going for the community. Have you? I mean, like you said, you kind of faced uncertainty because like the owners of the Elks Lodge were kind of like, we don't know. Um, but did you get any backlash from anywhere else? Like I said, like the city's kind of iffy about
Yeah, no, the city they've been cool because we're doing this event in private
property.
property. So as long as, the food trucks are in the private property, that should be fine. All of these guys, they all have their permits, their business license, so we're all good to operate. So in that regard, that's why I don't think there's much of anything coming up. It's because everybody has their paperwork up to date, up to
Yeah.
code. So, you have all of that, you avoid problems. And that's why we've been able to operate until now without any problems or anything like that, is because, we're doing things the way they need to be
Yeah.
done so that we could avoid any problems or getting shut down,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Um, so we're in summertime right now. You got food truck Fridays every Friday, but what else you guys got going on for the summer as far as the high end comidas? I know you guys are here and there, different events and everything, but what do you guys got going on? Where can we find you guys sometimes?
We used to be right there at Union Street, but since they're like a church collective place, I think they run like with tax free stamp status or
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. So then they let us know that they can't have people in the property that are making money for them to be considered, let's say, tax free.
Yeah, tax exempt. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So then they're like, unfortunately, we're gonna say it was a good run.
Yeah.
So the whole new thing is that right now I'm actually gonna be looking for a new base of operation, a new home for high end comida.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, sometimes you get the ball rolling, you run into a little setback, a little bump on the road.
Yeah.
But the main thing is like if you hit a bump in the road, patch up your flat tire, get right back in
Yeah.
there. So even though things were going nice, right now I have just this little setback, but I'm gonna be finding a place pretty soon. I already have a couple places in the works, But I think more than anything, just following the social media, the updates will be there regularly with the weekly schedule and all that type of stuff. So I think until maybe next week, I'll be letting everybody know where the new location is going to be.
Yeah. And where can people find you on social media?
They could find me in Instagram at High End Comida or High End Comida 2, which my business partner Gustavo runs. So you could get a hold of either one of us, and
Yeah.
we'll be able to answer any questions you might have anytime.
Okay. No, that's awesome. As we come to the end of this session, I always ask everyone, what is your words of wisdom? What is your piece of advice? It could be, you know, food related. It could be personal related. It's like if people could take away one thing from you, what would you say and what would you let people with?
One thing I could definitely tell people is don't let yourself or others say you can't do it. Even if you had a bad upbringing, even if you ran into trouble and all that stuff, don't let any of that stop you from going where you want to go.
Yeah.
I had so many, obstacles come my way, and I had to figure that out on my own way on how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has their own ways on dealing with problems and issues, and that's okay too. As long as you stay in the road that you need to take, that's what matters. How you get there does not matter. As long as you make it from point A to point B and you stay on the road that you got to take, do it at all costs necessary.
Yeah.
Don't let yourself have any type of doubt in yourself of why you can't do it. Be your own cheerleader, be your own motivator,
Yeah.
and work for it, because at the end of the day, nobody could take it from you, and you have that self of accomplishment of doing something about it. So when you go to bed at night, you know that you did something to get it and to go towards that goal one more step closer.
Uh-huh. That's some good stuff right there. George, I just again thank you for coming on. I hope that when people see this, they get inspired and motivated, because I myself am, just hearing your story and what it took to get to where you're at, and what you're continuing to do to better yourself and becoming the best version of yourself. So I want to thank you for coming on to the show. Guys, Chef George, High End Comida, make sure you follow him, check out his food. And later on we'll do a little video when we go visit, and maybe we could shoot something at your truck. But
yeah, anytime.
Thank you again for joining us, everybody. I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure you guys stay tuned for the next one. Thank you for tuning in. God bless, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace out.